You know, they're 2 weeks removed from a big win against Georgia, and you assume they were going to blow Vanderbilt out. And you're saying, okay, maybe they'll get off to a slow start. Maybe you can make this game competitive in the first half. But again, now they're going to be locked in. They're not going to be overlooking South Carolina. They're going to be angry. Not saying that South Carolina can't make it a competitive game, but I think people's hopes dipped a little bit seeing what happened last weekend.
Oh, absolutely. Look, you can't be excited. I mean, you can be excited all you want, but it's hard not to be, frustrated and like, I guess, doubtful about the team. Hopeless, I think, is the right word after what happened last week. I mean, that was pathetic. 3 points. But you know what? It's a new week. It's a new game. I'm kind of tired of talking about this Ole Miss game because they just, quite frankly, stunk. And so you turn the page and you hope they play better for everyone's sake.
Well, let's lift everyone's spirits with our 9 a.m. Sandstorm pick-me-up.
Let's go.
It is time for your 9 a.m. Sandstorm pick-me-up, brought to you by South Carolina's largest injury law firm, George Sink Injury Lawyers. If you've been hurt in the car or at work, call George Sink now at 803-ALL-9s. As we turn our attention to this game coming up this weekend, we put out a poll question on our at 1075 The Game Twitter yesterday, and we asked, how many points does South Carolina need to hold Alabama to for you to feel fully confident in their chances of pulling off the upset on Saturday? The options were 25-30, 20-24, 10-19, and below 10. Do you want to take a guess at what is winning the poll as of right now?
Well, I'm looking at it now. I'm seeing 10-19. That is, I hate to be Mr. Dream Crusher here, but I don't know if that's realistic.
Now, if South Carolina was able to hold them to between 10 and 19 points, I would feel very confident in their ability to win this game.
Dude, here's the thing. If you hold the Alabama Crimson Tide to 10 to 19 points, you better win. I like Dowell Loggins. You need to be calling like the greatest plays known to man, and the players need to be executing because that is a blessing if that happens.
Don't get shut out 17-0.
Oh, if that happens, there'll probably be some pitchforks out here and stuff. Oh, it would be, oh my gosh, you can't have that and then go scoreless. But I think realistically, man, I think somewhere between, I'll just give it a wider range, like the 20 to 26 range would probably be ideal. I feel like whatever you did against Ole Miss would be enough, probably.
I voted 20-24 because, again, the strength of South Carolina's team is its defense, obviously. Now Alabama has a ton of playmakers on offense. That's the case every single year. They're going to score their points. I don't see this defense holding them under 20 points. You got to figure out a way to go out there and score more than 20 points yourself, which, again, after last weekend, looks like it's going to be a bit of a struggle.
You just have to kind of get back to, I don't want to call it the basics because there is no basics with this play calling because it's so complex, but it's like, I would just say kind of get back to what you did in those LSU and Kentucky games. Figure out what worked. I feel like give Lenore Sellers some small opportunities to, short throws and stuff and get him going. And then open it up when you need to and let the running game develop because I think that's going to be a key in this game.
For this team overall as a whole, on offense, defense, and special teams, you're going to have to play as close to perfect as possible if you want to pull off this win against Alabama because they are so talented on all sides of the ball. And one thing that South Carolina has to do better, and we've talked about this all week long, is getting better in the penalty department, specifically the pre-snap penalties. Yesterday, Clayton White, talking to the media, cut number 12 here, Dave, talked about the offside penalties that have been a consistent problem for this team so far this season.
To be honest with you, especially when you work your butt off to get them in a 3rd and 10. To get an offense like Ole Miss into 3rd and 10, they've only had, I think it was 7 all year or something like that before they played us. So to get them in 3rd and 10, to get them in 3rd and 9, and then to jump off sides off of a clap is very frustrating. So obviously we're addressing it. It's nothing personal to our guys, but we want to just keep learning from it and growing from it. So obviously in practice, if I'm scripting 15 plays in the period, I can only script 12 or 13 because we're going to work on jumping off sides. So, and every team does it. It's one is smart by offenses, and then we do have some rushers, people that are trying to keep off track. So, but we just got to keep grinding, and it's been very frustrating. So, but we're working on it. That's what we do as coaches. Like I said, we're not mad at a kid personally, but it's just more when you decide to play defense, that can happen to you.
And look, he said the right things, and so is Dow, so is Beamer. Everybody, as this issue's gone on this season, show me. Like, all right, fine. You're working on it in practice. You're clapping. You're doing whatever to try and simulate these things to keep these guys more disciplined. I need to see it in the game. And again, until I see it in the game, I'm not going to believe that we're moving in the right direction.
Exactly. It's the same song and dance every single week where we hear, oh, we're getting better, we're doing this, we're doing that. But it's like, can we please see it in the game? And it's like, okay, sometimes you can't control what a kid's going to do out there. You can't control what a college athlete's doing out on the field, like the unsportsmanlike conduct penalty. You can't control that. The offsides penalties, you can do your best to make sure these guys don't clap, or they don't jump offsides when the clap goes on. And hopefully that helped this week. But again, when it comes to game time and you're in that situation, the heat of the moment, I'm sure it can be tough on these players not to have that adrenaline rushing through them and getting excited. It just comes down to being disciplined enough. And if they're not, it's going to happen again on Saturday.
And again, you're going up against a very, very good offense in Alabama that is going to score points. It's going to move up and down the field on you. And the last thing you want to do is give them any kind of free pass. When you're looking at this Alabama offense, the two names that really stick out are obviously Jalen Milroe at quarterback, as well as Ryan Williams, who's 17, in case you didn't know, at wide receiver. What is more important for Clayton White's unit on Saturday, limiting Milroe's use of his legs or just stopping Ryan Williams overall?
Well, it's a great question, Tyler. And yeah, thank you. I did not know he was 17 years old. I would say probably stopping Milroe's legs. And I'll tell you why, because look, Ryan Williams is a real threat on the outside, but then again, he's not the only guy you have to worry about, because there are other receivers in that offense that I think Kendrick Law is another good one that I think he's probable or questionable right now on the availability report, but he's still a very good receiver for Alabama. So they're going to have playmakers all over. The one thing you have is one quarterback, and that's Jalen Milroe. Like there is not another Jalen Milroe on that team. They got other guys, but it's not what he can do. He's a great passer now. He's obviously been a lethal runner over the years. I think you really need to be able to contain him on the ground, because if you can force him to throw, look, I know he's throwing the ball a lot better this season. I would feel so much better if he beat you through the air than if he beat you on the ground, because the last thing you want is him running up and down the field, kind of doing whatever he wants, dictating the game. And that's going to create pressure on the defensive line and stuff to be able to make plays in the backfield and force him to throw. And he's probably good enough to escape out of any tiny pockets he has. But if you can do that, I feel so much better about him throwing the ball and taking your chances with the secondary.
I go back to the game they played against Georgia the other week. Of course, they got out to that 28-0 lead very quickly there in the first half, and a lot of that was predicated on Jalen Milroe getting around that edge, mainly around the right side, and just being in the open field, and at that point probably being the best athlete compared to all the other guys he was going up against, even though that was a very talented Georgia defense. And in the second half, Georgia started assigning, I think, an extra linebacker to him to account for that, and they really shut him down when it came to running the ball, and Alabama as a whole ran in that second half and forced him to beat him with his arm. And it really was more Ryan Williams making an amazing play on that 75-yard touchdown right after Georgia had taken the lead late in the fourth quarter there that ended up being the difference there. But there's a blueprint for how you can limit this team and limit Jalen Milroe. You just got to see if South Carolina has the right caliber of athletes on Saturday to do that.
And the thing is, like, Ryan Williams is a fantastic receiver. And you're right about that catch he had against Georgia for the go-ahead touchdown. I think that's more on the receiver than it is on Milroe, because it wasn't the best throw.
It was a relatively short throw.
Because he had to come back for the ball, right?
He came back for it, and then I'm forgetting which two DBs it was on him, Julian Humphreys and somebody else, and then he just made the double move that just made those guys run into each other like it was a comedy skit, and he took up off the sidelines. But that play wasn't designed to go that far. He is just a great play by a very athletic wide receiver.
And the thing is, with Williams, I mean, he only had 3 catches against Vanderbilt. And yeah, he had the touchdown. He also had a rushing touchdown. But like overall, if you can kind of contain him to like 5 catches or less, I'd feel good about it. But it is seriously, like, Milroe dictates the game. If he's running the ball wherever he wants, there's a good chance he's probably also throwing it. And I don't think you can have it both ways in this game. I think you have to be able to, like, kind of what is it like? You have to give a little bit to get a little bit. So I think you got to be able to try to limit the runs as much as possible. And if he beats you through the air and throws for 400 yards, hats off to him. That's why he's probably going to be in New York for the Heisman Trophy ceremony.
Yeah, it's one of those things. You're not going to be able to limit them on both sides. So try and limit one, and hopefully the other one doesn't kill you too much.
Yeah, and hopefully your offense steps up finally and comes back to life.
well, this past weekend against Vanderbilt, the Commodores were able to pull off the upset. I referenced this a little bit yesterday in the 10 o'clock hour, but Brooks Austin of the Film Guy Network on YouTube, as well as Sports Illustrated, did a really good job breaking down this film on how exactly Vanderbilt's offense was able to beat Alabama consistently throughout that game on Saturday. We're going to talk to him coming up next as he gives his thoughts on maybe some things that South Carolina can learn going into this weekend to try and take down the Crimson Tide themselves. That's coming up next. It is The Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Veltri along with you on your Thursday. By the way, Carolina Calls coming up tonight, 6 o'clock with Shane Beamer and Todd Ellis on the game here in Columbia and Myrtle Beach on your Thursday here on the game. Welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Veltri along with you on your Thursday here on the game, getting you set for South Carolina and Alabama coming up on Saturday as we hope to see the Gamecocks do what Vanderbilt did this past weekend and pull off the upset against the Crimson Tide. And as I referenced a little bit earlier, if you're looking for a great breakdown of how exactly Vanderbilt was able to pull off that upset, you can find it on YouTube at the Film Guy Network with our guy Brooks Austin, who's joining us now on the Love Chevrolet phone lines, who gave a thorough analysis of what exactly the Commodores did to take advantage of the Tide. First of all, Brooks, appreciate your time this morning. I have to ask really quick, how many hours a day during the football season are you grinding tape? Because you are very good at it, sir.
I appreciate it, man. I would say if I'm producing an hour of content, it takes about 3 hours of prep. And we usually produce about 4 hours of film study a week. So you're looking at about 12 hours of prep for that on top of the 8 hours of live content that we do. Like you guys, we do a live show as well. So, yeah, we work hard, man. But I think that's what it's required. I always would be frustrated with listening to coaches after a game say things like, well, I got to check the tape first, and folks just taking that as coach speak or jargon that they're listening or trying to deflect the question. But that's the reality, right? We don't really know what has happened. We can't really tell what is actually 100% going on in a football game until we have the opportunity to slow it down and really grind that tape, man. You really do have to do that, in my opinion, to formulate really strong and correct opinions.
Well, you are very good at it, and a lot of people are noticing what you did with the breakdown of Vanderbilt and Alabama this past weekend. I want to start off with this because this clip's gone very viral on Twitter. I think it had over 1 million views last time I checked. But your breakdown of Kane Womack, the defensive coordinator for Alabama's affinity for this cover one robber concept that he seems to be very married to and doesn't want to deviate from, despite the fact that the last 6 quarters have not gone the way he wanted it to for Alabama's defense. Is that more of a lack of depth of the playbook, or is it just a belief that, hey, I got the best athletes on the field and this is going to work more often than not?
Yeah, I can't. It's hard to tell, man. I want to give some type of not necessarily an excuse, but the reality of the situation, right? Womack was the head football coach at South Alabama in January of this year. He is now the defensive coordinator at Alabama by February. So since February to early October, he had all the opportunities in the world to install whatever type of defense he wanted to. I, for the life of me, can't figure out the propensity not only to just play the cover one robber that he plays about 90% of the snaps, but he's completely avoided matching personnel. So when you're playing a football team like South Carolina or like Georgia or especially like Vanderbilt, they're going to rotate personnel, man. They're going to have 2 tight ends on the field one snap. The next snap, they might have no tight ends on the field. The next snap, they might have 2 running backs. The next snap, they might have 1. Well, while the offense is flipping personnel and changing what they're doing, by God, you better be doing that as well defensively. And for the life of me, I just couldn't figure out, A, why you would stay in nickel personnel against a football team, meaning 5 defensive backs on the field, against a football team that's running a virtuoso version of the triple option. And B, why you would never move away from a similar, pass coverage and defensive alignment the entire football game. It was very confusing to me. And honestly, when I watched the Alabama-Georgia game, in the second half, man, the only reason he had defensive success in brief moments was because he was willing to vary the looks. So it was very confusing. I saw some Alabama beat reporters look at it as he must have thought he could just line up and play football and beat Vanderbilt. And I don't know if that's ever going to be the case in the SEC nowadays. You can't just line up and play ball. Like, you're going to get cooked on third down, which is exactly what happened, man. That was the difference in that football game. 12 for 18 on third down was Vanderbilt, and that's how you're going to win, man. You're going to win ball games. You do that.
Hey, Brooks, Jack Veltri from Gamecock Central. Appreciate you joining us, man. Wanted to kind of go off that. How much of what you saw in your film breakdown, just watching that game back, was Alabama's defense struggling versus Vanderbilt just doing enough offensively to kind of get the job done?
Yeah, man, they weren't killing them. It was 3 yards in a cloud of dust over and over and over and over again. If you look at those third down conversions, man, and this was something, I looked at in terms of the Georgia game. Georgia saw this man coverage defense, and they were like, you know what? we're going to slice their jugular right now. We're going to throw 65-yard bombs. The only problem with that, even if you do create separation, it's still really hard to complete those balls downfield, right? Whereas Vanderbilt used those man beaters and used those schematical, wins, right, and used them on third downs almost exclusively when they had a 3rd and 5 and they absolutely needed to convert. Well, they would go right into these man beaters that they knew would win, where we're only really trying to create a yard or two of separation, 5 or 6 yards downfield, and that's all we need because we're just trying to convert this 3rd and 5, this 3rd and 6, this 3rd and 9. We are living to convert this down. We're not living to slice your neck and kill you right now with a big touchdown, right? Where I think South Carolina might be able to do something very, very similar, assuming that, Alabama doesn't go to the drawing board and reestablish their entire defensive, philosophies.
Again, talking to Brooks Austin from the Field Guide Network, also writes about the Georgia Bulldogs on Sports Illustrated as well. And, you're and many people are becoming bigger and bigger fans of Diego Pavia for what he did on Saturday. Dude's just an absolute ball player, grinder, and went out there and made plays when he needed to make plays. Now, South Carolina's offense under Dow Loggins is not exactly the same type of option offense that Vanderbilt has, but what can Dow Loggins, as well as Lenoris Sellers, who is a mobile type of quarterback, take away from what Diego Pavia and Vanderbilt's offense did and potentially apply to this weekend?
Well, you can certainly assume that their run fits aren't going to be 100% perfect. I think that's one thing we noticed on the film from that Vanderbilt matchup. It's not just that Vanderbilt created movement at the lines of scrimmage or gave different looks or made them play the option. It's the fact that Alabama was putting multiple defenders in a singular offensive gap multiple times throughout that football game, where I'm stopping the film. And I know it's easy to do this, but I'm stopping the film, and I'm seeing 3 Alabama defenders stacked amongst each other on the defensive alignment. That's not ever going to be good, right? We got 5 gaps to cover as a defense, sometimes 6, 3 on the left, 3 on the right, right? A gaps on both sides, B gaps on both sides, C gaps on both sides. If we got 3 defenders in one of those gaps, multiples of those gaps are wide open, right, and allowing for us to be gashed in the run game. That's something that I've noticed over and over again for Alabama. Their run fits just aren't exactly perfect, and that's due to preparation, right? That's due to not seeing things correctly in the run game. So that's something Dow can certainly attack. I will say this about what I've noticed from Dow this year as a coordinator. It's very clear to me that he is being tasked with protecting a quarterback that is very, very turnover prone. I have really liked what I've seen from Lenoris. I think the future is extremely promising, but you'd have to be remiss looking at that tape from Lenoris this year and say that, oh, he's not one play away from a turnover at all times. He's one play away from a sack fumble. He's one play away from an interception and throwing it to the other team, I feel like, on a down-to-down basis. And as a coordinator, man, that makes my job really, really hard. And I know it's easy to look at last week's performance and say, man, Dow's struggling right now. Where I look at the film and I say, all right, I see what he's trying to do. He's very much so trying to protect the quarterback right now.
Speaking of Sellers, do you see anything similar between him and Diego Pavia that maybe Lenoris can kind of, I don't want to say copy, but kind of like base his like play off of to kind of go out there and do what Pavia did against Alabama?
Honestly, I think you're playing the blueprint. I think if I were trying to create a blueprint for Lenoris Sellers, I would model it after a little bit like Jalen Milroe. I think he can be a much better passer and from a mechanical standpoint than Milroe even is. Milroe, the efficiency that he's able to throw the ball with down the field, mechanically it makes zero sense. Like, you will never teach another human to throw the ball like Milroe because mechanically it's not clean. It doesn't make any sense. He's just gifted enough to make everything happen. I think Lenoris has the ability to be a much better thrower of the football than Jalen is, but I don't think he'll ever be quite the runner that he is. But if he's half as good or three-quarters as good as Jalen as a runner, then the much better passing attack from that type of athlete will create the type of dynamicism that Jalen Milroe presents. I think that's the kind of model. I wouldn't want to create what Pavia is doing right now for Vandy unless I knew for a fact my quarterback was comfortable running, again, the pseudo option, man. Those are really hard reads to install on 1 week. That's a multiple year process. I think a lot of people forget Pavia actually brought his offensive coordinator with him from New Mexico State last year. I think it was actually the inverse. The New Mexico State OC got hired at Vanderbilt and then brought Pavia. So this is the second year in this system really, growing with these reads and these mesh points. It's a difficult system to even execute offensively. So I wouldn't be rushing to install it if I were South Carolina.
By the way, watching New Mexico State play Jacksonville State last night, they're surely missing both Tim Beck and Diego Pavia right now.
Yeah. No doubt about it.
He is Brooks Austin. Again, you can find him on Twitter at Brooks Austin BA, as well as the Film Guy Network on YouTube. Appreciate your time, man, and hopefully come the beginning of next week, you're breaking down film on how South Carolina was able to exploit Alabama's defense as well.
Absolutely, man. Look forward to it. Y'all have a good one.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Brooks Austin breaking down film there from Vanderbilt and Alabama. We'll come back. We'll dive into what Dow Loggins did have to say yesterday in reference to the offense struggles from this past weekend and what they can do to be better going forward. I want to remind you the game is teaming up with community partners, launching the Hurricane Helene relief effort for families in Asheville, Greenville, and Spartanburg, South Carolina. Today is the final day that we're collecting things here locally. Again, you can bring non-perishable items such as canned food, bottled water, diapers, wipes, pet food, toiletry items, feminine hygiene products, non-electric can openers, and much, much more out today to Brooklyn Baptist Church on Sunset Boulevard in West Columbia. Terry's going to be out there from 12 to 3, but they'll be collecting donations all the way until 6 p.m. Again, trying to help out all the families affected by Hurricane Helene. It is the Extra Point. Listen to Dow Loggins coming up next on your Thursday here on The Game.
Hey, want to tell you about our new show sponsor, PL Wine Pool and Spa. They're an award-winning swimming pool builder that's been in the business for 25 years with more than 40 years of pool construction experience. They service the entire Midlands area, whether you're looking for weekly cleaning maintenance or chlorine to salt conversion with services like safety cover installs and safety fence installs. You can check out all their offerings at the showroom in Lexington, South Carolina, and talk to their experts about any and everything you might need. Their retail store is located at 5541 Sunset Boulevard, which is in Lexington. Again, that's 5541 Sunset Boulevard. And you can also check them out online at plwinepools.com. Again, this is PL Wine Pool and Spa, and this is one of our newest show sponsors.
Welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Feltry along with you here on your Thursday on the game. It's time for our Laying the Wood segment, brought to you by our friends over at Georgia Pacific. And as we've talked about plenty of times this week, Ole Miss's defense brought the wood to South Carolina, holding them to just 3 points this past Saturday in Williams-Brice Stadium and stirring up a lot of conversation about Dow Loggins and this offense. That has no doubt struggled at times this year. Looked good at times as well, so it's not all been bad, but a game like Saturday definitely leaves a bad taste in people's mouth.
Oh, absolutely, man. Just everything that happened on Saturday was just really, I think, a lot of frustrations for the fans especially, but I will say offensively speaking, and now hearing Dow Loggins afterwards, I've seen a lot of people just even more. It's like adding salt to the wound, right? It doesn't make it any better. And hearing all what he said yesterday, I thought he said the right things yesterday, but the fact of people not being down with some of the stuff he said just really probably left a sour taste in their mouth.
Let's hear what Dow Loggins did have to say yesterday. Let's go with cut number 22 here, Dave. This is him commenting on the process of making improvements with this offense.
Yeah, that's a really good question. We have time for 2 questions. He said that we could talk about that for 30 minutes because it is a great question because there is a lot on a young kid, and we have had a lot of moving parts with the injuries and youth and trying to figure out where to put people and do those things, and Lenore's being banged up and then Rocky gets banged up, but it's also an opportunity for other people to step up and to help fulfill a role in a game. And it's also the message in a world we're in right now is with social media and hanger-oners and all this stuff, all the noise that's in these kids' head is to, like, when you walk in the door every day, you have to focus on the process of getting better. And you have to put all that other stuff, all the outside noise to the side and focus on the tape. Because our tape, when we hit play on that, with that remote over there, that's our resume as football players and football coaches. And right now, ours isn't good enough. And there are some things that we can praise the good and coach the bad really hard. We have good kids, so they're able to take coaching, and there is good. It's not like, wow, oh my gosh, like, we got no chance. Like, we've proven that we can do some really good things offensively. We're just not doing it consistently enough, and it's the process of growth and cataloging reps. And when there is someone goes down, then the next person has to be ready to step up. And if you're not in, it's also a message to those other guys like, hey, that's how fast you go in. You're one play away. You're 2 play away, and you have to have the right mindset, because if you're not getting mental reps, if you're not paying attention, if you're not learning from someone else's rep, positive or negative, then you're hurting the team. So that's really when you talk about the messaging is do everything you can to improve your value, which will improve the value of the team.
So hit on a lot of things there. And one thing I do want to make a note of, because he does bring up a fair point, is the injury part of it. So in just 5 games so far this season, just talking about specific contributors on offense, you've had injuries to your starting quarterback, your starting running back, and 2 of your key wide receivers in Gage Larvadain and Jared Brown, who is once again on the injury report this week. And I'm not saying that's an excuse for why the offense isn't as good as it needs to be, but that is something that we do have to consider, that he has had at times not all the complements of his weapons together and healthy at the same time. Yeah,
and that's very true. That's going to be the case again this weekend with Jared Brown listed as out on the availability report as of yesterday, and I doubt it's going to change. Look, it's not really an excuse because you have other talented players out there and stuff, but at the same time, you haven't had that consistency that you're looking for. And it's kind of like last year with the excuses of the injuries that South Carolina had, especially on the offensive line when you had zero continuity. It's kind of a little bit of the same this year, although not as bad as it's made out to be. I think you should be able to be scoring more points regardless of who's out there, because you do have talented players. And it's not just Lenore, Sellers, Rocket, Sanders, and Jared Brown. You have other guys out there that should be able to do things. It's just not happening.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, we've liked what we've seen out of Larvadain these past 2 games now that he's finally healthy against Akron, and of course Ole Miss this past weekend. So maybe there's something there. Again, we talk about the importance of needing somebody to really step up and emerge as that wide receiver number 1, and maybe Larvadain is on his way to doing that, and certainly having a good game at Alabama could go a long way with doing that as well. I like to, every single week, I put together my notes for the upcoming game, and I always, reference both South Carolina and their opponents' national rankings when it comes to certain fun statistics. And on offense, I'm just going to run through some of the main ones that I always put on this list here. South Carolina's offense is 74th in scoring. They are 43rd in rush offense. That's not too bad. 110th in pass offense, 93rd in total offense, dead last in sacks allowed at 134th, 131st in tackles for loss allowed. They are 122nd in third down conversions, 80th in red zone efficiency, and then 78th in explosive plays. Outside of the rush offense, not too many redeeming numbers there.
Sounds like they got a lot of problems, huh? I mean,
a few.
I could be wrong, but I mean, those numbers don't sound too pleasantly to me, especially being dead last in sacks. I mean, come on. It's the same story as last year. Imagine if we get to the end of the season here and they actually find a way to have more than 41 sacks allowed. I mean, what's the excuse then? It's like all the injuries were like, oh, that's the reason why. But like this year, man, you have a fully healthy offensive line, and it looks honestly worse.
I brought this up to Terry yesterday and we've talked, the tackles are a problem. Casey Henry's getting put on skates every single week. Josiah Thompson, who is a true freshman, you can't expect to go out there and be perfect, has had his ups and downs as well. And I posed the question to Terry, is there a fear of changing things on the offensive line this year? Because that was the story last year. Because of the injuries, we went through almost the entire regular season, or the entire season, because there was no bowl game, without continuity. So every single week there was somebody new on the offensive line. You were plugging guys in, moving guys around. Somebody else was getting hurt, and it wasn't until the Vanderbilt game in like week 10 that you finally had a cohesive starting unit for 2 weeks in a row. But this year you've had the same five up front, outside of a little bit of mixing and matching with like guys like Ball getting in there and Tree on a few plays, but that hasn't really been the case over the past few games. I wonder if there's a fear of wanting to mess with continuity because of how bad that hurt you last year that's maybe preventing them from making changes on the offensive line, or they just don't believe the guys they have behind Henry and Thompson are good enough to fill those spots.
Does it even matter if they make the change? Because it's not. I don't think it's going to make any difference, because you saw last year what happened when they kept changing over and over again, and I mean the results were awful. And then this year you have the same five out there, and the results are, quite frankly, still awful. So I think what was the second part of what you said there? Because I don't think they're not afraid to make change.
Well, I think it's the fear of not having continuity, because again, when you're talking about all position groups on the field, there's nothing more important for an offensive line than sticking together, because you move as one. So it's not just, all right, here's what the center's doing, what the tackle's doing. They're all moving interchangeably together. And if you're a center and you know exactly what the right guard is going to do, that helps your offensive line overall. If it's a guy that you've never played with or haven't played a lot of reps with, you guys might have some miscommunications, things might not go well, and that leads to problems. So I wonder if there is a slight fear in not wanting to change with what's not really working, but what you have up to this point that may be preventing them from making the changes. Or again, second possibility, they just don't believe the guys behind them are good enough.
I will say, and I think maybe that is part of it, but I think Beamer did say, going back, I think, to before the season, it's a lot harder to change up an offensive line compared to, rotating guys in and out on the defensive line. Like, they haven't been rotating guys on that O-line. I do think they do like what they have with the continuity. But here's the thing. They talk about how they need to be playing the best players and stuff. Why isn't that the case in the offensive line? Is it because you guys just don't have anyone good behind them? Or is this just your best starting five? What happened to that Great Wall of Carolina talk we had heard so much about? Because it is looking like
I haven't heard of that in a while.
The wall has been knocked down, I think. Yeah. It's the Berlin Wall out there right now, man.
It's not looking great. And again, you're going up against an Alabama team that does have a good pass rush, as you're going to see a lot more times as the rest of the season goes along. And hopefully it's not a long day for the offensive line on Saturday.
I don't know, man. I mean, it can't get much worse. But again, they're inching closer to that 41 sacks, and that really scares me.
Well, let's talk about something positive coming up next.
Yes,
Good
please.
news for Spencer Rattler, as he will get his first career start coming up on Sunday for the New Orleans Saints. We'll dive into that a little bit coming up next. To wrap up today's edition of The Extra Point, he is Jack Feldstrom from Gamecock Central. I'm Tyler Head on your Thursday on the Game.
sure you guys are all going to be wondering who's going to be the quarterback. Spencer Rattler will be the quarterback for this game. We talked a lot as a staff about what we felt like was the best thing for us and give us the best chance to win the game. That was the decision that we made, and we're excited about him getting an opportunity to go in there, and we'll let him go play and see what he can do.
Welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Feltry along with you here on your Thursday on the Game. That was the voice of New Orleans Saints head coach Dennis Allen yesterday announcing Spencer Rattler to make his first career start in the NFL coming up on Sunday as the Saints get set to take on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Of course, if you watched Monday Night Football, you saw Derek Carr go down with the oblique injury in that game. Now, Jake Hayner came in to finish that game out as he has been the number 2 guy on the depth chart. Rattler was not activated for that game. He was the emergency quarterback, but the decision was made in the couple days since that he, as Dennis Allen said, gives them the best chance. They're going to let him go out there and see what he can do.
This is super exciting, man. It is going to be really exciting to watch the Saints now. I think a lot of Gamecock fans feel the same way. Look, I mean, Derek Carr is a great quarterback. I enjoy watching him. I love what he's about and stuff. But, he's at the age now where, like, injuries like this are kind of going to become a little more common, and he hasn't been having the greatest season. I think at some point this year, you kind of knew, like, it was going to be sooner rather than later that Spencer was going to get his chance. Just because I'm surprised he fell all the way to the 5th round of the draft. Like, he was one of the last quarterbacks taken, and it was a shock. But, he really impressed me during the preseason and stuff. And I figure at some point he get his chance, and a little earlier than I expected. But this is a great opportunity for him to really show what he's got.
And of course, we had plenty of opportunities to talk to him here. Media stuff, came into the radio station a couple times, and he's just a really good guy. Really great personality that did a lot for the South Carolina football program and really embraced being here in Columbia. And Bill and Preston were running through this a little bit earlier on this morning, kind of thinking about his journey up to this point. It's really a neat story. Of course, he was the top quarterback coming out of high school in Arizona, 2019, I guess that class was, and goes to Oklahoma and, sits behind Jalen Hurts and finally gets the opportunity to start. Has a great, first season, and then, is being talked about as the Heisman Trophy favorite and number 1 overall draft pick. Gets benched for Caleb Williams. The fan base turns on him. He goes to the transfer portal, comes to Carolina, and if you remember, his career at Carolina didn't start off all that great. He was very shaky through those first 8 to 9 games and finally turned it on there at the end with those upsets of Tennessee and Clemson. Obviously had a very good season last year, all things considered, with the issues on offense, and still found his way to the NFL, though not as the number 1 overall pick as many people thought he was going to be a couple seasons ago. But he's got a good head on his shoulders, obviously a hard worker, and again, somebody here that was very easy to pull for when he was at Carolina.
I'll say this, man. Coming to South Carolina for him, I think was, I'm sure you could speak on this, it was the best move of his career, in my opinion. Like, he got out of that situation. That whole situation with how things ended in Norman was tough for him, I'm sure. Obviously, people look back at the QB1 stuff from high school and stuff with the Netflix show. That's not who he is, man. He's such a good dude, and I'm really happy to see that he's hopefully having a lot of success here in the NFL. And look, it's going to be tough because he's got the Bucs, and the Bucs are a good team.
Yep.
And then it's, 5 days later, it's Thursday Night Football. And look, that's back-to-back starts he's going to have here. And that other start comes against the Broncos. So it's not going to be much easier against that type of defense. However, both games are at home, so I think that should really help him. I don't expect a ton out of him. I'm not expecting like a 300-yard game in his first outing, like all rookie quarterbacks. But you know what? He's got a good head on his shoulders, like you said, with the Saints, and I think he's a really solid guy to go out there and maybe have some success.
And I believe, if I'm understanding correctly, because the Panthers play the Falcons at 4:25 on Sunday, we should get this game in our local viewing window here, so you don't have to have like Red Zone or whatever to watch this.
No, so it will be, so it's going to be all throughout the Southeast here, fortunately enough, and because the Panthers aren't playing till later, people will get to watch the Saints around here, and that's going to be a really cool thing. I'm sure a lot of people are going to be able to tune in and stuff. I'm personally really excited to see how he does.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And when you look at the Saints, again, Derek Carr and this team got off to a really good start with those wins against the Panthers and the Cowboys the first 2 weeks, but the past couple weeks have certainly been a different story. And look, the Chiefs only win by 13 is not indicative of how badly they really beat the Saints the other night. This is a team that's kind of slipping a little bit. But that being said, you have a lot of playmakers on offense. Raheem Shaheed, Chris Olave, obviously Alvin Kamara in the backfield. This is one of those things where Rattler doesn't have to go out there and be a superstar in game number 1.
No.
Get the ball to your playmakers. Hopefully the offensive line does a good job and protect him, as they've had struggles with that this season up to this point, as they're the 31st overall in pass blocking according to Pro Football Focus. But get all your playmakers, try to limit mistakes, and come out there hopefully with a good performance and a win on Sunday.
And I will say, regardless of how it goes these next few games, I think you have to let him have his leash. You have to give him time because, look, this is possibly the future of your quarterback position right here. Derek Carr is not your long-term answer. Spencer Rattler, I really believe, can be. And I think because he's had the opportunity to kind of sit back these last few weeks and learn, and he's got the good playmakers around him, I really do think, look, most rookie quarterbacks end up struggling right out of the gate. But I think for a guy like him, he's going to do fine, and he's got the playmakers around him. Just go ahead and trust them because you can find a lot of success that way.
I think this is the first time in my life, and probably a lot of people here locally that are probably Panthers fans will have ever actually pulled for the New Orleans Saints.
That's going to be weird when the Saints play the Panthers in a few weeks, and it's, do you root for the Panthers or do you root for Spencer's success? Like, that's going to be... It's going to be fun. And
if the Panthers continue trending in this way, you probably just want to hope for them to keep losing so you can get another top draft pick.
Oh, yeah. Oh, man. That's but hey, Spencer, really happy for you, man. That's super cool to see him starting.
Yeah, and again, like he I know the wins and loss record wasn't what people wanted it to be here at South Carolina, but he more than did enough at quarterback here, and I can't imagine how much worse off the team would have been last year if he was not your starting quarterback, because he certainly played above the level of what this offense, was certainly with the offensive line a year ago. So wishing him the best of luck, and certainly excited to see what he can do in his first NFL start, and hopefully the start of what can be a good, solid, and long NFL career.
Yeah, this is the moment where he comes for Derek Carr's job, and he pulls the Tom Brady moment against Drew Bledsoe and doesn't let the job up. We'll see what happens. But, hey, Saints are a good team, and Spencer might be the guy for them.
Do you think every backup quarterback, when they get the chance to start, says, like, I'm the next Tom Brady?
Deep down, yeah, I would say so. You got like that Josh Rosen mentality.
Yeah, right. That'll do it for today's edition of the Extra Point. Coming up next, it is the Gamecock Club Hour presented by Krantz Heating and Cooling. Jarvis Evans, transfer from the University of Georgia for Gamecock baseball, going to be hanging out with myself and Wes Mitchell. Coming up next on your Thursday on the Game. 10 o'clock on your Thursday. Welcome in. It is the Gamecock Club Hour presented by Krantz Heating and Cooling. Tyler Head and Wes Mitchell along with you here on your Thursday, hanging out with another guest from Gamecock Baseball. This time, another transfer. Jarvis Evans coming over from the University of Georgia. Now a Gamecock. Jarvis, first of all, appreciate your time this morning, and thanks for hanging out with us.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Excited to have you here. We've had a lot of your teammates. This is 4 or 5 now we've had in the past couple of weeks. So
we've been on a baseball run.
We're kind of making our way through all the transfers coming in. And how's your time in Columbia been so far?
I'm loving it so far. Coming in, just being welcomed by everybody, coaches, staff, trainers, other players. It's just so far the environment here is just amazing, and I can't wait to, I guess, see where the season takes us.
Jarvis, I think the guys we've talked to that have gone through the transfer portal, they all maybe have a little something unique about their particular journey. Can you kind of take us back for you? When did you kind of make the decision to enter the portal? How did that process play out? And then how did you, of course, land on South Carolina?
Just finishing off last season at Georgia, just kind of reflected on my season. And when I decided to enter the portal, it was more of a, I guess, in search of a better spot, better where I feel more comfortable in a rotation, and where I feel as I'm allowed to kind of be myself on the mound, and that's where South Carolina was. And with Coach Rooney, he was the first person to reach out. He was very open and upfront about like what I'm coming into, so that made it a lot easier to make the decision to come here.
Now, Coach Rooney is obviously on the new staff. So how did this timing take place in terms of, South Carolina's like going through their coaching search, then they hire Maneri, they hire his staff. How quickly after, do you remember like how quickly that happened after they brought in the new staff here?
I want to say it was pretty quick. It happened to just be honestly like perfect timing. So I had entered the portal, I want to say maybe a week or two after they hired Coach Maneri and the new staff. So I want to say I was one of the first that Coach Rooney was able to reach out to as the South Carolina pitching coach. So I guess that made things roll a lot faster too. Is that he had to kind of like they kind of were catching up on recruiting just because of the time they got hired, and with me going into the portal at the same time, it kind of just was perfect timing.
Now, we've heard a lot of positive things about Coach Rooney. What is it about him that players seem to like so much?
Honestly, I would just say, like, for me, it's his enthusiasm. Like, you come to the field every day, and it's whether you have the energy or not, you're gonna go. You're at the highest level that you can be in college baseball in the SEC. So, grinding every day, you're pushing your bodies to the limits. There's some days where it's, you're kind of just like tagging along and you're having to pull it out of you. And his enthusiasm when you go to the bullpen every single day and we're starting to work, it honestly just brings you up. It fires you up. It makes you just want to, you could tell he cares, and you could tell that fire inside him is, I think it's going to be clear and going to be shown by how the guys like are on the mound this year with their body language and everything like that.
Now, before South Carolina had reached out and sort of made it apparent, hey, we want you, you're a priority for us, had you paid much attention to the program in general? Had you paid attention to, hey, they're bringing in a new coach, they're bringing in Maneri? It feels like it was pretty big news in the baseball world that they were bringing back a national championship coach to the game. But how much had you paid attention, from right down the road in Georgia to what was going on here in Columbia?
I definitely took it, definitely looked into it a little bit, especially with me being at Georgia. Of course, South Carolina was in the SEC with us, so I knew I was gonna, if not play for them at the time, I was gonna play against them again. And seeing like them bring in such a well-known coach that's had so much success in his career already, and I think that just kind of brings a certain, I guess, I want to say like enthusiasm, sort of like environment that it's like you're here to win, and Coach Maneri for sure brings that, and I think that everybody believes that, and it almost is expecting to see great things coming from this staff.
Now, going back to your time at Georgia, because Coach Strickland got let go after your freshman year, they bring in Coach Johnson. Was there any thought last summer about wanting to enter the transfer portal because they were making a coaching change?
It was definitely a thought. I talked to my family about it, and it just, with Wes coming in, it kind of just was almost the same kind of situation. with same as last year, so kind of felt comfortable in that situation, and it was almost like kind of like right before the season started, so it was kind of because Coach Strickland had thought he was going to keep coaching, so wasn't really planning on that. I didn't really have much time to, I would say, even really consider the portal, just because I wasn't a big name coming out of my freshman year. So I would say it wasn't really much of a decision to leave last year, but after this year, yes, it definitely was.
I'm curious, what can you tell us about just playing for Coach Maneri on a day-to-day basis? Like, I feel like the little bit of time we've been around him seems like, you know, you kind of get this idea like, oh, this guy was a national championship winning coach, won all these SEC titles, big name. My takeaway was like, he just seems very down-to-earth, like genuine type person.
Yeah.
What is that like just to be on the field, be in the locker room, just kind of that day-to-day that you get to experience?
No, he's just like you said, he's extremely down to earth and extremely humble. I mean, to have the accolades and the career he's already had, he could, I guess, walk with his head held high and his chest out whenever he wanted to. But he's just like Coach Rooney. His enthusiasm, the fire that he has inside him, it almost makes you want to go harder, because it's like, at the end of the day, he doesn't need to be out here. He's already proven himself in the baseball world that he's an amazing coach, and he can win games and he can win titles. So it's like he's out here just because he's the love of the game, and it kind of just makes you want to go even harder, because it's like he's putting all his time into it. And so I would say that's like the biggest thing, is just pure enthusiasm, pure like fire and grit.
Now that you've had a couple of practices under your belt with him, is he a hard-nosed guy? Is he a put an arm around you kind of guy? Like, what kind of coach is he in an actual like practice setting?
I would say very good mix. I would say he's definitely a little more old school. He's hard-nosed. He's, you know, hustle on and off the field, do things a certain way, act like you've been here before, you know. But I mean, like, even when he gets on to you and stuff like that, he lets you know like he still cares about you. He lets you know that he thinks that you have great things ahead of you. He lets you know how great of a player he thinks you can be. So I mean, it's a give and take, but I would say he's definitely hard-nosed.
One of the things about these interviews is we kind of like to let the fans get a little bit of behind the scenes on what like the day-to-day is for a student athlete right now. And I know for every athlete that depends on kind of what part of the year we're in. So right now, I know I've seen y'all have been having scrimmages. Y'all are sort of in like team practices, as opposed to, I know a few weeks ago, I think it was more like individual or small group type work maybe. Can you tell the fans kind of, I guess just for you personally, like what's a day-to-day, like, what does your schedule look like just on a random day in terms of, you know, I'm up at this point, class, facility, scrimmages. How does that look this time of year for you?
As of right now, with us, like you just said, starting scrimmages, class in the morning. Usually all the guys will have class early in the day. Get your class done, get some food in you, get to the field around probably 12, 1, get loosened up. We have certain things that we have to take care of with, you know, make sure your body feels right, getting treatment, making sure you're ready to put your all into practice, because practice is going to take a toll on your body. So it's like you want to make sure your body's not only in good shape, but primed and ready to go. Practice, come home, knock out some schoolwork, and then if I have some time, play with the dog. And then honestly just kind of chill until it's ready to do the next day.
Now, you came here straight from class. What class did you come from?
HTMT, so it's supervision. It's like HRM, so it's like, I would say, like resource management. Kind of focus on that, and it kind of goes with my major right now, which is services management.
And what do you want to do with that?
Not quite sure yet. I would love to find a way to, I guess, help athletes get in a position I'm in, and so if I can use that to, I guess, help guys get to where they want to be in their life, then I think that I'm definitely gonna go that route.
Kind of like be a resource for them in their lives. And speaking of resources, this is a Gamecock Club interview. So I know you've had an opportunity. We've talked to several of your teammates being out there at Gamecock Park before football games, just kind of being among the fans. What, from an NIL standpoint, resource standpoint, what has like the Gamecock Club and the fan base meant to you so far? I know you hadn't been here too long, but you've already kind of seen it a little bit.
No, they're amazing. Especially like you said with the signings before certain football games. Those are amazing. Just seeing all the fans coming out and meeting new people, meeting such, I would say, devoted South Carolina Gamecock fans for the first time before I even have played an inning here has meant a lot. And just with the whole entire, I guess, staff of, and when it comes to NIL and when it comes to compliance and all that, they're very inclusive. They're very informational. They let you know certain what you need, everything you need to know is at your disposal pretty much. So it's just the open arms that they had was just been amazing.
I think it's fascinating. Some of the transfers we interview are coming in from non-SEC schools, so they get to experience the first atmosphere over there, and they're just looking around like, holy cow, this is great. You're coming from Georgia, so you've seen SEC atmospheres as well.
For sure.
How much has the student athlete side of just experiencing football games and stuff like that been a part of your kind of college experience so far, both at UGA and here?
Oh, it's been huge. It's been some of the best memories of my life have been in during football season, when you're just throughout the week you're grinding with the boys. You're like I said earlier, pushing your body to the limits. So it's going on Saturdays, whether it was at Georgia or here, and then watching another team compete and do what they do. It's just it's nice. It's the college experience is something you can never replace, or with anything else. You have to, I guess, experience it, which is why they call it that. But I mean, it's been amazing, and it's definitely some memories I'll hold on to for the rest of my life.
We talked about this the other day. It's also, you need to have a coach that understands the importance of Saturdays in the fall and allows you guys the opportunity to go to those games and not have you at practice and stuff while those are going on.
Yeah. No, Coach Maneri, he made it clear that he wants us to support other teams as much as possible, and he knows that being a student athlete comes Saturdays, especially if you're going to school in the SEC. Footballs on Saturdays are pretty big around here, so just giving us the opportunity to, I guess, just kick our feet up and just be a college kid for that day, it's big, and I think it just helps mentally reset you after a long week of preparing and pushing your body to the limit.
It is the Gamecock Club Hour presented by Crayons Heating and Cooling. We're hanging out with Jarvis Evans of Gamecock Baseball. More coming up on the other side here on The Game.
All right, guys, we tell you about them about every day. It's our friends over at Integrated Media in Chapin, South Carolina. Phone number 803-948-8327. We got the NFL season going, college football season going, MLB playoffs right now. Maybe a great time to upgrade the man cave at the house, maybe upgrade the TV. They can do anything involving the audio or visual at your house. That could be something as simple as maybe hanging a TV in the living room or in an extra room, or if you want to go all out in the man cave or home theater system, they can do that for you too, or anything in between. If you want to upgrade your home security system as well and just aren't sure where to start, our friends at Integrated Media can handle that too. For me, it was as simple as running some Ethernet cords into my office so that I got consistent connections throughout the day from working from home. So whatever it is, whatever that you need to upgrade that audio or visual at your home, call them today, 803-948-8327. That's our friends at Integrated Media.
Welcome back in. It is the Gamecock Club Hour presented by Krantz Heating and Cooling. Tyler Head and Wes Mitchell, along with you on this Thursday, hanging out with Jarvis Evans of Gamecock Baseball. Of course, talking about him transferring over from the University of Georgia. You got the opportunity to actually pitch here back in the spring when you guys came to town. Talking about environments, what was that like for you being on the other side of things in Founders Park?
Oh man, it was insane. It was definitely not the place you want to play if you're not wearing that South Carolina logo. So it was cool to see. I mean, going to any SEC park and playing in front of any SEC crowd is always amazing. There's always fans that are devoted to their team, and so coming here was no different. I remember showing up. South Carolina. I say we. South Carolina already had a bunch of fans outside waiting for BP to start. And this is a couple hours before the game, so it's just like things like that. But people spend so much time and so much effort to come watch you. I could tell when we came into Columbia, it was different here.
And that was a big series because that Thursday night game was on, I think it was ESPN2 or ESPNU, late game. Like, there was a lot of hype and anticipation going into that series that weekend.
No, it was. We were playing high at Georgia at the time, and South Carolina was a big opponent we knew coming in. So it was one of those where we came in ready to go to war against another team for a weekend.
Yeah, the Gamecock fans maybe don't want to talk about y'all. Your prior team got your current team for that weekend, but man, I do think one of the cool things about college athletics too is seeing some of just the elite players come through. And SEC, like, every week you're going to be, if you're a pitcher, you're going to be facing elite talent. You're going to be seeing elite talent. I actually was at that game. There was a cool moment. Ethan Petrie was on third base, and then I look out there and I'm like, all right, in the same frame is Ethan Petrie and Charlie Condon for UGA. And I'm like, first of all, the amount of just talent in that window right there. Mm-hmm. Not to spend too much time on the Gamecock Club Hour hyping up a UGA player, but what was it like? I mean, Condon's one of those guys you're just like, he kind of transcends.
He was special.
Like, he was special. Kind of like we've been talking about Ryan Williams for Alabama this week, the wide receiver. Elite of the elite. I feel like Condon's one of those guys. Even if he's playing your team, you're just like, hats off. That guy's amazing.
Yeah, no, it was the past 2 years watching him play was incredible. I mean, that guy is the most humble, hardworking guy that I've ever met, and for him to be so good and so talented on the field, it gets to the point where I just remember we'd be in the dugout when he's up to bat, and it's like you almost expect it to go 400 feet, and you expect it to be 110 off the bat. So I mean, just seeing guys like that, like, he's honestly, like, some consider him a generational hitter. Yeah. And especially the things that he did in the SEC for 2 years straight, that's big. And it goes to show you that, I guess, like, the talent that's league wide. And I mean, every team has that guy. But no, watching him was incredible. And I'm definitely excited to see him playing the bigs.
Yeah, he hit I think a double, and he hit a homer as well, but he hit a double early in that series, and it didn't even look like he got much of it, and it was just like a line drive laser off the wall, and I'm like, how? Some people just, you can't really even explain, because he doesn't look like a big guy.
No, he's not.
Well, he wasn't highly touted coming out of high school either.
No,
his story is pretty interesting.
Yeah, he was unrecruited coming out of high school, and I want to say he redshirted his freshman year. So, I mean, even when he got to school, it was like he was already kind of getting doubted again. So, I mean, no, his story is incredible, and he just kept his head down. And even when he had his breakout freshman season, even the next year, this past year, he was the same guy, came in every day, ready to go to work, ready to support his teammates. You never hear anything bad, negative coming out of his mouth. I mean, that guy's he deserves everything coming to him, and he works for it for sure.
Last thing about Charlie Condon before we move on, did you ever have to go up against him in like an inter-squad scrimmage, and how did that go?
I did a few times actually. I got him a few times, but he definitely got me a few times too. I mean, anything off his bat is usually floating around 100 or higher. So I mean, anytime he comes up to the plate, it was definitely a chance for me to test my skills, test my repertoire, going against a guy that good, and kind of just he'll always get his team ready for good mistakes, We
were talking off air. It looks like you'll get to make your scrimmage debut hopefully here pretty soon. How excited are you just to get out there on that mound, face some of your teammates, and just kind of, I know it's not a real game, but it's kind of that next step in terms of looking ahead to the spring?
No, I'm itching. I mean, I came here for a reason. I came here to help produce and to help this team win and hopefully make it to Omaha this year. So, I mean, get on the field as soon as I can and showing the guys and showing the coaches what I truly am capable of I'm excited for it, and I can't wait. I'm ready to attack the day.
Anybody in particular looking forward to going up against?
I've already faced him twice. I mean, once, but I always want to go up against the best. So I would love to go against Petrie. I love to go against Talmadge. You know, I want to go against the best guys in the lineup because I feel like they're just only going to get me better. And I think that if you put best versus best, then you guys are going to end up being the best. Mm-hmm. That's how you compete every day on the field, and that's just, I guess, the way I've always been. I wanted to always have the best guy step in the box.
How has the locker room been since you got here in terms of, like, we talked to a couple of your teammates, like we said, and they're talking about, man, to be a team that has a lot of new guys, be it freshmen or transfers, that they just felt like the group has sort of gelled together pretty quickly and just, get along, have good team camaraderie. I know maybe most teams say that, but what have you seen coming in as one of the newcomers in terms of just the team sort of clicking?
No, definitely. I think that, honestly, here it's even more so than at UGA. Was the guys here, the returning players, they're just so welcoming, so inviting to the new guys. I mean, inviting us to tailgates, the team tailgates, inviting us to play card games at someone's house or to go fishing, or it's just guys like they're including the new guys in their lives. That's what they did when we first got here. And I know, like, even from like the first 2 weeks, I was like, oh, these guys are cool. Like, these guys are definitely like easygoing and easy to get along with. And I think everybody the whole team vibe is just very, very joyful, and everybody wants to be there. Everybody wants to be around each other. There's no talking behind people's backs or secretly not wanting someone to see someone succeed. So, I mean, I think that just makes it easier for everybody to get along, is because we truly believe in each other. And you're one of many transfers that came in this past offseason. How long does it take for that whole group to gel with the guys that have been here before? I mean, it's different for every team. I remember last year we had a lot of guys coming to Georgia, and it took quite a long time, I guess, in my opinion, for us to gel like how we have here, and so quickly. And it didn't happen anywhere close to this quick. It didn't happen until, I would say, like right before the season. So, I mean, just seeing how quick the guys have like become a family, and I feel like we're all boys. You know, everybody likes everybody. There's no arguing on the team. There's no bickering and stuff like that. So it's nice to be in such a positive, like, hardworking environment.
I'm curious, man. In terms of SEC atmosphere so far, either that you've pitched in or that you have just seen on TV and you're like, man, I want to pitch there. We'll take Georgia and South Carolina off the table, so we can just put those are obviously the best atmospheres you've ever seen. We'll just put that out of the way. But other than Georgia or South Carolina, what's the atmosphere in the SEC that you're like, man, that was special, or that looks like it would be special to pitch in?
The two that I've played in so far have been at Mississippi State and A&M.
That's two good ones.
Mississippi State, A&M, and then the one this year that I'm really, really looking forward to playing in is Arkansas. Mm-hmm. They played us at home my freshman year. And their fans traveled deep, so I can't even imagine what their fans like at home. I'm ready to see that. We tune on the Gamecock Club Hour, presented by Krantz Heating and Cooling with Jarvis Evans of Gamecock Baseball. Real quick, though, I want to remind you, the game is teaming up with community partners for Hurricane Helene relief efforts for families in Asheville, Greenville, and Spartanburg. We're going to be collecting items once again today out of Brooklyn Baptist Church on Sunset Boulevard in West Columbia from 9 until 6. Terry's going to be out there from 12 until 3 doing the halftime show. Of course, bring non-perishable items such as canned food, bottled water, diapers, wipes, pet food, toiletry, and feminine hygiene products as well. All that, again, out to Brooklyn Baptist Church today, going till 6 p.m. It's the Gamecock Club Hour presented by Krantz Heating and Cooling on your Thursday here on the game.
All right, guys, Gamecock Club Hour is presented by our friends over at Krantz Cooling and Heating. Since 1983, family-owned, and they've got a special offer right now, 0% APR for 60 months on qualifying equipment. Must present a coupon at time of service. Call Krantz Cooling today for complete details, 803-672-3224. You can also go to krantzcooling.com for more information about their services or to set up an appointment. Of course, anything involving your HVAC, they want to be your go-to provider. And really, if you want to call them today, if you don't have any issues, this would be a great time to go ahead and let them come out and give you an estimate or just make sure that everything is looking good before we get too cold right now. Or if you want to check out that AC while we're not in the hot summer months here, that would be great as well. 803-672-3224 is that phone number. Again, the website, Krantz Cooling. That's Krantz with a K, Cooling with a K, krantzcooling.com.
Welcome back in. It is the Gamecock Club Hour presented by Krantz Heating and Cooling. Tyler Head, Wes Mitchell hanging out with you on this Thursday. Jarvis Evans of Gamecock Baseball is hanging out with us as well. Of course, I've talked plenty of baseball here, but going back to your days in high school, you were also a pretty good quarterback back at Buford.
Yeah, that was when I grew up playing. Definitely thought that was going to be my journey growing up, but definitely first love, but it was fun. A lot of memories were made.
Now, at what point did you have to make that decision? Okay, it's going to be baseball, not football.
I actually didn't make that decision until after my senior year of football season in high school, and I decided to transfer to Georgia Premier Academy in Statesboro, and then from there I took a post-grad year to kind of hone my skills in, and then from there I was at the University of Georgia.
Now, tell us about your style as a quarterback. What was your I mean, it sounds like you're pretty good. You can brag on yourself a little bit. Tell us about your game on the football field.
I was all right. I was not like the most athletic. I'm kind of more of a drop back, throw it type of guy, but I prided myself on just knowing what the defense was doing, watching film, and just kind of being a step ahead mentally. Like that was my thing, is I wanted to try to get in your head.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like a game when I would play. It would just be like, oh, like how am I gonna trick them into doing this, turning this way? So it's kind of like that mental game was very. It kind of what kept me locked in, kept me intrigued.
So if you watch a football game, are you still watching it from like a quarterback perspective in terms of, hey, what's the defense doing here? How are they going to attack it? Or are you a little bit more casual, I'm just going to enjoy the game at this point?
To be honest, I would say like I still watch it as a quarterback.
Okay.
Yeah. I still am like, oh, he's open. He's like that's the right read. That's the first read. Hit the check down. Things like that. But I think that's just the sports mind in me. Like I don't think that'll ever go away. Just kind of growing up, that's how I learned the game. So that's kind of just how I take it in.
Now, were you starting for the back-to-back championship teams
Yes,
at
sir.
Buford?
Yeah.
What was that? What was that experience like?
Surreal. I just remember like growing up in Buford, Georgia. If you're from around there, Buford is
it's powerhouse.
Yeah, Buford's very well known.
Everybody in the state knows about it.
They know that when you go to Buford, you're going to win state titles. So that I guess that sort of shared belief, shared expectation. It's a lot. It's a lot of stress, but I mean at the same time, like when you fulfill those expectations and go above and beyond that. It was one of the best feelings ever, having the whole town, the whole city, I guess, be behind you.
More importantly than the state championship, what was your head-to-head with Grayson like?
I only played Grayson once head-to-head. I played them in JV before I became starting quarterback, and lost in I want to say the last 30 seconds of the game on an onside.
Listen, the whole state pays attention when those two teams play, because you want to talk about high caliber D1 athletes on both sides. On both sides, that's the best game every single year.
No, for sure. Like I would say growing up around Buford and Gwinnett County, that's where you're gonna find a big selection of some of the top athletes in the country, and not just in the Southeast, like the entire country. I think that we have a lot of, especially when you look at football and baseball, from guys from around my area, there's a lot of talent. If
you just search for Buford High School and look at the football alums, I mean, it's insane. So Justice Haynes for Bama from Buford, right? Dylan Raiola spent some time there.
He spent senior year there.
Who was the best football player that you played with? Anybody just stand out?
I would have to say, there's two that come to mind. I would have to say Darian Brown. He played a running back at Buford. I mean, and then when he went to Texas, and sadly had a stroke and had to stop playing football. But when I remember just handing the ball off to him, watching him run. That guy was gifted from above with his athleticism. And then I would say Isaiah Bond. Bond is definitely
with Texas now.
Yeah, he was younger when I was playing quarterback there, so he wasn't our wide receiver number one. He was kind of still getting used to coming up through, and I would say growing into his athleticism, because I mean, as you see it now on a national stage, he's one of the best in the country. So it's like having those guys around you in high school is incredible. I mean, it's like it kind of elevates your game, because you gotta work even harder to be on the same level as some of these guys are just naturally gifted.
Now, with Bond, could you tell kind of right away, like, this guy's going to be really, really special?
We always knew he was fast. Because we knew he ran track, and I want to say, if I'm not wrong, I want to say he like set some indoor record or something like that. And so we always knew he was fast, and so it was kind of just waiting for him to like learn how to use it and learn how to be that speedy wide receiver on the outside that can get behind the DVs. So I mean, once he was learning that, I would say he was really getting the grasp of it right before I left. And then once I did leave, he really filled himself out and learned how to use his athleticism, use his speed to do what he's doing today on the national level.
Yeah, he's special, man. Do you watch a lot of football? I mean, it seems like you still kind of love the game.
Yeah, if I have time on Saturday, usually I try to watch the Gamecocks first. If they're not on, then I'll flip between certain games, kind of just based on who I want to see or if there's a good matchup that week.
I think another thing about these interviews, we like to let the fans kind of know about you a little bit off the field. If you're not playing baseball or watching football, any other hobbies, anything else you're just kind of into, or is it all about sports?
I'm a big gamer guy.
Okay,
I love playing my PlayStation. Big dog guy. I have a cane Corso at the house.
Awesome.
So playing with him, my game and him after I get done with the field, kind of take the rest of my time.
What are we playing on PlayStation?
Big Warzone guy.
Okay.
Yeah, I love Call of Duty. That's always been a classic of mine. And then I play NCAA football now that came out finally.
Okay. Yeah, I think we're all enjoying that game.
Yeah, I was about to say, if you don't say CFB 25, then I'm gonna be shocked. How are you playing online? Playing Dynasty? Or?
I'll play on like quick play every once in a while, but I'm a road to the show guy. I love making a player and just kind of living out.
Heisman?
Yeah, living out a different lifestyle that I do.
Where's your player at?
I started with the first one. I started at South Carolina when I first got here. When the game first came out, and then I just kind of been going to team by team, just different atmospheres. I remember I went to Penn State, wanted to get the wide out. Then I went to USC to play on the West. So it was just kind of. Honestly, I'm gonna try to play every single.
You're utilizing the transfer portal every year, basically.
Oh yeah, every player is transferring every year. He's seeing all around the country.
I think Tyler has built Kennesaw State into a dynasty.
I'm working on App State at the moment.
App State, okay.
I tried to get Jared Brown. I couldn't get him to land there, unfortunately. He was demanding too much.
Is that big among your teammates, just like gaming and stuff? Is it from what you've seen?
I wouldn't. To be honest, I'm not too sure. I mean, I like with the guys here. I know a few of them do, but a lot of them are, I would say, a little more outdoorsy. Mm-hmm. Like just kind of a lot of us, like a few of them grew up here and they like to do things outdoors, and then because usually we spend most of our time at the field anyway, so it's like the time you do have, you usually only picking one or two things really to do.
Right.
So it's kind of just every guy almost has their own little thing.
You mentioned fishing. Have they taken you fishing yet?
I have not been here, but at Georgia I went quite a few with a few of my teammates.
Are you good at it?
I would say I'm okay.
Yeah.
I'll catch a fish here and there, but I'm not a pro or anything for sure.
How long have you had your dog?
He turns 2 in February, so I have him about to hit year number 2 with him.
How big is he?
He's huge. I want to say he just hit 145 pounds.
That's bigger than me.
He's a big dog. Yeah, he's serious. He's almost like a horse.
Legit 145.
Mm-hmm. He's a cane Corso.
How much does he eat in a day?
I feel like I need to Google a cane Corso.
I give him.
You've seen one before, trust me.
I want to say I give him 3.5 cups of food morning and night, so 7 cups a day.
Jeez.
And he gobbles it, and he's still hungry.
They're monsters, right?
Yeah.
Is that what he kind of looks like?
Mm-hmm.
Or
yeah. He's just his colorway is black with like brown spots. They call it brindle.
How I mean, you're kind of like smiling thinking about which I'm with you. Like, what has it meant to you to kind of to have a pet like this kind of part of your life, I guess?
No, honestly, he's the best thing that's ever happened to me besides ball. I mean, coming home every day doesn't matter. I could have just had my worst outing of my life, and he's still excited to see me. And I saw somewhere where it was like, a dog might be part of your life, but you're their whole life. So I guess like when I saw that, it was just kind of like, I did make the decision to get him, and I made me his entire life. So it's like every chance I get to go play with him, take him for a walk and spend time with him, like I look at him as like honestly like my son.
Yeah,
I say that at
sure.
Rays. Yeah.
I imagine he attracts a lot of attention when you're taking him out.
Oh yeah, you can't go anywhere without someone mentioning how big he is or commenting about something about him.
Now, does he think he's a lap dog like most big dogs do?
He thinks he's like 12 pounds. He'll jump on the bed and he'll try to come cuddle. I'm like, dude, you're way too big. Like you can't. He's on the blankets, like you acting like you can just move it under him. Like no, it's stuck. No, he definitely thinks he's still a puppy.
That's awesome, man. So I think I guess moving forward here, man. Getting back on the field a little bit? What are kind of the goals for the rest of this kind of fall? Like how I guess first of all, how much longer do y'all scrimmage? Like how long does this portion of the schedule last, I guess?
I want to say right up until Thanksgiving break, so towards the end of November.
Okay.
And then we have off through like Christmas break, and then we'll start back mid to late January with the season starting on Valentine's Day this year. So that's a little out there, but focus, I guess, just finishing the fall up is just keep building strength, getting bigger, and trying to get the velo up a little more, get the spin rates up, get the movement up. Kind of just fine tune everything before shut down for a little bit, and then it's go time.
How much is technology a part of the game now? Watching MLB, they'll tell you like all these different like spin rates, and the velocity is down to it's like 94.2 miles an hour. Like, it's very specific these days. How much, I guess, is that a part of the college game in terms of that information technology?
I'd say it's extremely important, but at the same time, I would say it can be quite the distraction too. Mm-hmm. I would say that if used in the right way, it can track. Like if you have TrackMan going when you're pitching, you can see every single measurement about the ball, how you're releasing it, how it's spinning, and you can use that to hone in your pitches and to make them more consistent, or do with them what you want. But at the same time, it's like there's some guys where it's like if they focus too much on the numbers, and they're not just actually feeling themselves doing it. Because at the end of the day, when you're on the field, you don't have a screen right next to you telling you every pitch, like, oh, you threw this fast with this much vert. No, like it's either ball or strike, and the guy's either out or safe. So it's like if you're able to separate those two and use one to get better, and then when it's time to compete and just play the game like you grew up playing, then I think it could be extremely beneficial.
We'll come back and wrap up today's edition of the Gamecock Club Hour, presented by Krantz Heating and Cooling, hanging out with Jarvis Evans of Gamecock Baseball on your Thursday here on The Game. Welcome back in. It is the Gamecock Club Hour presented by Krantz Heating and Cooling. Tyrod West Mitchell, Jarvis Evans of Gamecock Baseball hanging out with us here on this Thursday. Reminder coming up tonight, Coach Beamer on Carolina calls at 6 o'clock with Todd Ellis on the game here in Columbia and Myrtle Beach. Get Beamer's final thoughts ahead of Saturday's matchup against Alabama. Last couple minutes here, getting to know you a little bit more off the field. We always like to get into the food conversation. Obviously, you know, when you're in season, maybe focusing on health a little bit more. But if you just had to eat whatever you wanted to eat, what's your go-to meal going to be?
I have to go with a good old steak, mashed potatoes, and probably some broccoli. Like,
sounds pretty good.
Classic. I'm a big steak guy for sure.
Now, do you like the broccoli, or are you just throwing in a little green just for good measure?
Be honest, I have to give credit to my mom. She kind of forced the greens down my throat when I was growing up. So got to learn to like a few things. Like big fan of zucchini, big fan of broccoli, certain vegetables. I'll try to throw in as many meals as I can.
Now, how important is kind of the nutrition to it seems like 20, 30 years ago, people in baseball wasn't even part of the conversation. I feel like now you see, like you watch the game on TV, it's like these are elite athletes playing baseball. So how much has nutrition, strength and conditioning, all those things become a part of your routine?
Honestly, it's the biggest part. Growing up, I mean, when you're little, you can go out there and throw 60 pitches and then go play shortstop right after, and then still want to go to the playground or go outside and play basketball when you get home. It's like growing up, you kind of get into that age where like your body, you're filling into your body, and your body's moving a lot faster and a lot more violent. Especially being a pitcher, you're throwing 100% every single pitch. So it's like having your body like fueling it and taking care of it is so crucial and so vital, because if you don't, you're exerting so much force now, and when you get stronger, you're exerting so much force to where it's like you could really mess something up because of how fast you're moving in. I would say like that's, in my opinion, why the game has turned into pitchers and baseball players becoming such athletes, is because it's moving so much faster and it's moving so much more, I would say, like aggressively during the game.
What do you think of this concept of, like, I see people talk about it as far as MLB all the time, pitchers throwing like at 100%, and then you see so many injuries at that position now. I know they've always been injuries, but obviously it seems like there's more. What do you think in terms of like full exertion of energy every pitch versus, hey, I'm going to maybe throw 96% or whatever? What do you just think of that conversation?
I mean, it's kind of different for every guy. I mean, there's guys that can go out there and they do that on purpose to change the timing or to mess up a hitter, or there's guys where it's like you might have a closer come in late in the game and he throws 15 pitches, but those 15 pitches are with all he has, where it's like you have a starter who you're expecting him to give you 5 to 7 innings on a good day. So it's like you kind of just have to pick and choose. You know, you're not just making sure your body is in shape enough to where it can exert 95+% on every single pitch after pitch. Like especially if you have a good outing, close to 100 times, if not more. It's like, just speaking about it, you can tell like you have to be in shape. Your cardio has to be right. You have to eat. Like your muscles, something's going to get hurt if you're doing something 100 times at that much effort. It doesn't matter what you're doing. You need to fuel it. You need to stretch. You need to make sure like you're healthy to do it.
What exactly is a pitcher's diet?
I'm big on just. Honestly, I'm like a garbage disposal. I'll eat whatever I can. I'll eat whatever's in the house. But I try to eat as clean as I can. So I mean, big, like you said earlier, big kava guy.
Yeah.
I eat Chipotle. But just try not to eat as much fried foods and greasy, like I guess like things that aren't gonna provide me any nutrition. Try to stay away from. So trying to stay away from like fast food and things like that. Just kind of eating clean and trying to make sure I eat things that fuel my body and help me become a better pitcher.
Is that the chicken, rice, veggies? Like, I feel like that's kind of the go-to.
It's definitely the filler meal. I mean, I'd say like if you don't know what to eat that. Like, you can't go wrong with that. So I mean, just that, protein shakes. Make sure you're hydrating. I mean, there's a lot that goes into it. And it's a daily thing. It's like you can't be a roller coaster. You gotta just stay committed and stay disciplined with it.
Last minute here before we get out of here, what are you most excited about this upcoming season and looking forward to in your first year as a Gamecock?
I'm excited to see where this team can take it. I mean, we got talent up and down the roster, and we have a coaching staff that I know is going to pull that talent out of each and every individual. I think that this team has no limits. I think that it wouldn't be surprised if you see this team in Omaha come June, and I believe that, and I think that we can make that happen if we just come out and just do us, not worry about outside attention, and just, I guess, keep being the same Gamecock family that we are right now.
How much is the word Omaha getting thrown around in the locker room right now?
Not a lot. It's more of just a shared goal. You're not thinking about it like that. You're kind of just like, that's where everybody wants to go. So it's like, just put your head down and let's get there.
Well, that'll do it for today's edition of the Gamecock Club Hour. Jarvis, appreciate you taking your time today, and certainly wish you and your teammates best luck this year.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
This is the Gamecock Club Hour presented by Krantz Heating and Cooling. Coming up next is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs on your Thursday here on the game.
All right, guys, once again, I want to tell you about our friends over at Classic Roofing. Head on over to classicroofingsc.com for more information about their services. Taking good care of your roof can be challenging, but you do not have to do it alone. With years of experience under their hats, Classic Roofing is the go-to residential and commercial roofing company for home and business owners here and around the Columbia, South Carolina area. Quality craftsmanship and great customer service, simply unmatched by our friends over at Classic Roofing. If you call Classic Roofing today, the great thing about it is you're going to deal with one of the owners. So when you call them, they're going to walk you through the entire process and be right there every single step of the way, just like they were for me when I did the same. And you can call them today, 803-590-7870. Let them come out for a free estimate, give you an idea if there are any current issues with your roof, and to talk to you about the life that you may have left on your roof. Again, that number, 803-590-7870, or head on over to classicroofingsc.com.
11 o'clock on your Thursday morning. Welcome in. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour, presented by Firehouse Subs, Towerhead, West Mitchell, and Chris Clark along with you. Plenty to get into today with this matchup between South Carolina and Alabama coming up on Saturday. But first, as we like to do every couple of weeks, got to get the latest on what's going on with Gamecock women's soccer. Happy as always to be joined by the head coach of the Lady Gamecocks, that being Shelly Smith. Shelly, Coach, first of all, appreciate your time this morning. Talked to you last, I believe, right before the Georgia game. You guys currently sitting at 5-1-5 on the season. How have things been going as of late with your squad?
Yeah, good morning, guys, and thanks for having me and checking in. Since we last spoke, we've had some great results. Unfortunately, that record has a lot of ties on there, 5 ties, but we're surviving. Our only loss has been to Arkansas, who's currently ranked in the top 5 in the country, and we had a good battle there. Tough opponent for sure, but we have done well to continue to compete and win games and then come back on some ties and figure out ways to not lose a game, but we need to do a better job in finishing out a game and winning those. And that's what we're hoping to do and start tonight again with another huge SEC battle here in town with Florida.
Coach Smith, Chris Clark here. Thanks for joining us. So I want to go back to one of those recent ties, and I know, like you said, you'd like to turn maybe one or two or all of those ties into a win, but you did have a come from behind against Vandy on the road, goal in the 89th minute by your freshman Katie Shea Collins, and pretty cool moment for her because my understanding from what I saw, she had a lot of family, friends in the stands and was able to come up big in the final moments. What was that like, just watching that?
Yeah, that was amazing. That game was crazy, and unfortunately our game of soccer can be like this, but we gave up a goal in the first minute of the game, which is unlike us. So we were playing down that whole game. We were all over them and outshot them, had multiple set pieces, corner kicks. Their goalkeeper saved them many times, and you're going along, and then literally in the 89th minute, the last minute of the game, our freshman found the back of the net, and it was amazing. I mean, I know it felt like a win when you put yourselves in that situation. And her entire, I think, her school, she's from that area, and they had come out and filled half the stands at Vanderbilt, and that's not a exaggeration. So it was pretty cool to see them out there cheering and for her to put that kind of display on for her fan base.
Coach, what does it say about the resolve of your team, though, to be down early, then be down for, almost literally the entire game, and then to score there at the end? I know, like you said, you'd rather have the win, but it's got to say something about their resolve and kind of just they didn't give up and have some grit about them.
Yep, for sure. No, I very proud of those moments and the effort. That's been this team. They've deserved to win some of those matches, and like that game for an example, but to be able to put themselves in a position to come back and never give up and keep pounding at chances, and luckily one went in, and that's happened to us, and on the other side of things where we've given up a late goal in some of those ties. We came back from down against Ohio State, who's having a tremendous year, and scored on the road at their place as well. So the fact that we've been able to do that home and away and give ourselves a position to win games, great credit to them. We have a lot of senior leadership, and they never give up. And you've got some young players like Katie Shea that shows she can come in and also do what we need her to do to help this team. And the mix and the combination of players, they've been great. And really, you can never count us out until, the last seconds of the game.
Again, talking to head coach of Gamecock Women's Soccer, Shelly Smith, here on your Thursday on the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour. Coach, these past couple weeks, you guys have managed to get yourself back into the top 25. You mentioned that only loss coming to a number 2 Arkansas team. What does it mean to have that number next to y'all's name each and every week and, be recognized as one of the best teams in the country?
Yeah, we're proud of that. And I think sometimes, you take it for granted. And I always say, anytime you're in the top 25, you're having a pretty good season. The competition is amazing. You look at the teams around us that aren't in there, and it's so close. And we're getting the kind of respect, even with, 5 wins only and 5 ties. We're putting ourselves in that national spotlight and competing with everyone we face. So it's important. We have some must-win games here coming up, and we've got to make sure we take care of business going forward. But we've left, like we talked about, some points on the table in some of these ties. But that fight and resolve, as we've talked about, is also very important. And as we try to find ways to make sure we win these games coming up.
Coach, after bouncing around, what does it mean to be back at home in front of your fans and just to have that excitement on your side this week?
Yeah. Oh, I mean, we love playing at Stone Stadium. It's a huge advantage for us. We've had great crowds all year. We continue to have that. We encourage anyone to come out. It's going to be a nice evening here at Stone Stadium. Comfortable weather, and a great night to play soccer. And, I think the atmosphere, I think our department, everyone that's involved in the program has done a great job to make it really a fun environment for all the fans to come out and support the team. Great product on the field as well, but the atmosphere is fun. It's exciting. And our players and our whole staff really appreciate all the fans that do come out and help us compete.
I'm reading right now, this is also the Pink Out game, so $3 admission to fans who wear pink. The game is tonight, 7 o'clock, against Florida. Coach, what can you tell us about Florida and maybe a couple of keys for you all tonight?
Yeah, Florida, they're better than their record, honestly, and that's why it's so crucial for us to make sure we take care of business. Very athletic team, works extremely hard. So we've got to make sure we come out on the front foot and match that kind of intensity and play through that. We'll have lots of pressure on us. So we've got to play through that and keep the ball and then take advantage of the opportunities they give us. I think we've played them a few times the last few years. Last year, I believe we left a tie. So we want to make sure we kind of revenge that and get the points we want, especially when we're at home here. But they're a good team, and they're going to continue to make a good run in the SEC. They just knocked off Texas, who's in the top 10. So they're capable of winning games against top opponents. So even though they may not be ranked, they are definitely capable of beating ranked teams. So we'll be ready for it.
Coach, just a housekeeping question here with the schedule. You guys did have a game that was a big game that was slated for Thursday, September 26th, and pretty rough weather that day, of course. Y'all are going to play number 9 Mississippi State, and anyone who saw the pictures and the photos from that understands why that was postponed. But I know at the time there wasn't a new date scheduled. Do you know anything that you can pass along about, rescheduling of that game?
Yes. So we are hopefully announcing it soon, but we've worked out a date that the SEC had approved of October 30th. So it will actually be tacked on at the end. So we'll have a final home game on a Wednesday evening of the season. So that will be October 30th is the plan.
And talking to Gamecock women's soccer head coach Shelly Smith here on your Thursday on the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour. Talk about this game tonight coming up against Florida. Out of the last 10 matchups, you guys have won 7 of them. There have been 3 draws in that process as well. I think last time we talked ahead of the Georgia game and the significance of that rivalry. What does this matchup with Florida mean, and why has South Carolina gotten the better of them for the most part of these past couple of years?
Well, Florida for a very long time, especially when Coach Becky Burley was there for years, they were the benchmark program in our conference. Just an amazing run they had. And, we luckily climbed our way up the SEC standings. And in the last several years, we have had a huge battle with Florida. A lot of times it came down to last season game for a conference title championship several times, which it just is always very exciting. I know the last couple of years they had some down years for their program, but Sam Bohan is a new coach there, and she's really done a good job to to get them back on track and expect to what you're going to see out of a Florida team. So it's become a rival for us just because we've always had a battle for championships with them. I believe we even beat them a couple years ago in the NCAA tournament in the Elite Eight to make it to the Final Four, and that's what we had to face to move on. So it's been a huge rivalry battle for us, and again, another opportunity to have them home, which we're excited about.
And last one for you here. They bring in, obviously coming off that win, like you said, over a ranked Texas team. Their senior midfielder, Lauren Donovan, was named the SEC Offensive Player of the Week. What kind of challenges does she present to your squad tonight?
Well, I think, like I said, they figure out ways to be dangerous. They're hardworking. They're very athletic. You got to be competitive and challenge, and you may not be as fast as maybe she is in a moment, but you've got to compete and bring cover when you need to because they have dangerous players. So I think our team has always been very organized defensively, and we've got to do that against this team. That we don't want to be caught in some 1v1 situations where they take their speed and athleticism to us. So we know we're going to be facing that, and then we've got to play out of that and make them defend. And this is a great team, like I said, and they have some dynamic players. So we just have to make sure we're stopping them and doing our best defensively and then play out of that.
Gamecocks and Gators tonight, 7 o'clock out at Stone Stadium. As Wes mentioned, it is going to be the Pink Out game. You can also watch it on the SEC Network Plus. Coach, appreciate your time and look forward to checking in with you in a couple weeks where hopefully we're still talking about a good ranked team.
That sounds good to me. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Again, Shelly Smith, head coach of Gamecock Women's Soccer. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. We'll dive into what the coordinators had to say yesterday, looking ahead to Saturday's matchup between the Gamecocks and the Crimson Tide. It's up next here on The Game. Welcome back in. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler Ed, Wes Mitchell, and Chris Clark along with you on your Thursday here on the game. Another reminder, we are partnering with community partners here to Hurricane Helene relief for families in Asheville, Greenville, and the Spartanburg, South Carolina areas today. Final day, we're doing it over at Brooklyn Baptist Church, Sunset Boulevard in West Columbia. They're going to be collecting until 6 p.m. Terry's going to be out there from 12 until 3 doing the halftime show. As always, you can bring canned food, bottled water, diapers, wipes, pet food, toiletry, feminine hygiene products, and anything else along those lines to help out those families in need with the hurricane relief. Yesterday was Wednesday, and we did hear from the coordinators, as always, coming off of the loss to Ole Miss and looking ahead to Alabama. I want to start off with this, listening to Dow Loggins, cut number 15 here, Dave, talking about just, quite frankly, what did not work against LSU on Saturday.
What were we trying to is very vague. We didn't execute the way we need to execute. We didn't coach the way we need to coach. There was some good, and I don't know if you find good in losing, but you have to look at all aspects of it. You know, we crossed the 50-yard line 7 times. We didn't finish in the red area the way we needed to. It was definitely a game where we were going to try to shrink the game a little bit and go for it on some 4th downs. And so you start looking at what didn't work. I think we were 1 of 5 on 3rd down runs that didn't. We were trying to put it more in 4th and manageable and go for it. And we weren't explosive enough in the passing game. I think we had 2 explosive passes. It's a hard formula to win, no matter how efficient you are in the run game. And we had 2 turnovers. So when you're not explosive in the passing game and you turn the ball over and you don't finish drives, I think we had 5 drives of over 8 plays or more, and it wasn't a move the ball thing. It was a finish a drive thing. It was a finish execution. And to their credit, they played really soft zone, didn't pressure very much, and said, hey, we're going to give up yards and let them do this and that, but we'll see if they could put 10 and 12 and 13 play drives together and score touchdowns. And I'm sure it was because of, the option game and all those other things. They want to make sure they had eyes on the quarterback, and, that was their plan, and they executed better than we did.
We heard reference to crossing the 50-yard line 7 times for him, and I believe Beamer as well on Tuesday. Wes, you have some thoughts on that?
Yeah, dude. Well, I actually have thoughts on the other thoughts that have come after he said that. And I do feel like, guys, there's definitely some social media world reaction to this, and fitting for the world we live in right now. But I got to at least defend Loggins a little bit on this one. Guys, it's not like he went into the press conference and said, well, you know what, guys, yeah, we scored 3 points, but guess what? We crossed the 57 times. Yeah. You can take that quote out of the entire quote and be like, this is what he said. But, and I think a lot of times, so originally, when you go to like journalism school and they're teaching you the basics of everything, they actually sort of tell you, hey, you need to include an entire quote to give the entire context. Now, we see all the time, because nobody's going to put an entire 5 paragraphs, because coaches speak for so long, you're not going to put the whole thing in there. But very clearly, he said, look, we didn't coach well enough. We didn't play well enough. And he even said, I don't know how much good you find in a loss. And certainly I think what he's saying is in a loss when you score 3 points. So in no way was that comment meant to be, but guys, that the rest of that doesn't matter. We crossed the 50. I see why if you just take out all the context and put that quote on Twitter, it sounds awful. That's not what. And honestly, this is why coaches feel like they can't give you honest answers, because you take any little answer they give and tear it apart. Like, don't say, hey, give me an honest answer, but then when you do, you take it out of context. Like, I think he's trying to say, look, the issues were the offense were not just, hey, we're going 3 and out every time. The issues with the offense were not being able to consistently execute on drives and then consistently execute once the field starts to compact a little bit and you're trying to make plays down there in the red zone. say whatever you want. Say, hey, you didn't score a touchdown. Valid. Say, hey, you didn't score more than 3 points. Valid. Say, hey, it's got to be better. Valid. But don't. I mean, I don't have any problem with him pointing out within a longer, multi-paragraph answer about crossing the 50.
Well, I mean, yeah, and we live in a like the social media clipping world, not only written but video. I mean, you look in any sector, politics, very common now. You take a 5-second clip of something, you take it, you put it in a political ad, you put it on Twitter. Oh, and but then you're like, listen to the rest of it, and it sounds there's more, or it's completely taken out of context. But that's the world we live in. I mean, nobody's when Beamer mentioned that or Loggins mentioned that. I mean, they weren't celebrating it. I think you're trying to get some context. Some people want coaches, for whatever reason, to go to a press conference and say something like, I'm awful, I should be fired, we did absolutely nothing right, it was the worst performance ever, and everybody should be mad. I don't know, maybe some people would feel better if they heard that. Me, when I hear a press conference, because it honestly, it helps us do our job to a degree, I want to hear some context, right? So you could look at the box score. Certainly when you score 3 points in a football game, things did not go well offensively. That is a poor offensive performance any way you slice it. Nobody's denying that. But what were the problems, right? Because, I can go, let me go look at the LSU box score. Carolina's 3 for 12 on third down. They did put up 400 yards and 243 rushing yards, so that's really good. But, I mean, in the game Saturday, Carolina had over 300 yards offensively. So what was the difference? Well, one of them was in LSU. You ran the ball better, and you had more explosive plays, which is also something that Loggins mentioned, and that's accurate, right? Going up and down the field consistently on Ole Miss. We talked about that before the game. Explosive plays, whether it's hitting some balls downfield, which they weren't able to do, having some explosive long runs, which they really weren't able to do. Those were keys, and they didn't do them. They lost. They scored 3 points. It's a little different. We've all seen games in Columbia where Carolina really can't move the ball at all. It's 3 and out after three, after 3 and out after 3 and out, turnover after turnover. They obviously had turnovers, penalties, all that on Saturday as well. But they did move the ball some. So then the question is, what happened when you did cross the 50? Why couldn't you punch it in? So I think the context is important. Maybe some people don't want to hear about it. I do, but I agree with you, Wes. Nobody's celebrating it. You're just trying to answer a question, and it doesn't change the fact you got to be better than 3 points at the end of the day.
Well, you're certainly going to have to be better than 3 points if you want to take down Alabama this upcoming weekend, because that is an offense that's certainly going to get their share of points scored coming up on Saturday. We'll talk to Charlie Potter, who covers Alabama for On 3, get his insight into the Crimson Tide ahead of Saturday's game coming up on the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour, presented by Firehouse Subs on your Thursday here on the game.
Guys, when you eat at Firehouse Subs as often as we do, you tend to get on a little run of your favorite sandwich, right? So for Tyler, it may be the TBR, Wes, the brisket add bacon. I've gone through different phases, the Italian, the steamer. But I got to tell you, there's a sandwich on the menu that has ascended my power rankings a lot lately. I've gotten it multiple times. It's like spicy Cajun chicken. Thing is actually really, really good. If you're in the mood for something a little bit more spicy, some heat as it's getting a little cooler here in the Midlands, go check it out. You can check it out at any of the 14 and growing Midlands Firehouse Subs locations. Easiest way to find the one closest to you and to order using the Rapid Rescue so you can avoid the wait and order online, firehousesubs.com. Or you can download the Firehouse Subs app, register for a free account, earn yourself some rewards toward future purchases. Firehousesubs.com or the Firehouse Subs app.
Welcome back in. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyrod Westminster, Chris Clark along with you here on your Thursday on the game. Of course, Gamecocks and Crimson Tide coming up on Saturday. Kickoff at noon. Pregame coverage starting here at 7 a.m. with Gamecocks game day as we see if South Carolina can be the second team in a row to take down Kalen DeBoer's Crimson Tide. Joining us now on the Love Chevrolet phone lines, covers Alabama for Bama Online with On 3 is Charlie Potter. First of all, Charlie, appreciate your time this morning. I got to ask, what's been the mood and the vibe in Tuscaloosa this week coming off of that loss to Vanderbilt?
I guess you have to talk about where you are, because if you're at the Mount Moore Athletic Facility, I think the vibe's been pretty good. The response, at least from everything that the coaches and players have said, has been positive. But I mean, you guys know, message board like Bama Online, I mean, it was hard to keep up with over the weekend. So a lot of disappointment, frustration. You can use a lot of different adjectives. Kalen DeBoer's done that as well. But I think everybody's just ready to get to the next game. I think this has been, the Georgia game, you were coming off a bye week. That's a huge matchup. Everybody's looking forward to it. That took a while to get here. But I think this week has felt longer just because people are ready just to see Alabama get back on the field and see if they can clean some things up.
Charlie, it's Wes. Appreciate you doing this, man. What can you tell us about this Bama defense, just as someone who watches them every week? I watched them, obviously, in the first half against Georgia. I'm sitting there thinking, man, this is fun. It's aggressive. They have, some concepts, I feel like, schematically that I feel like you don't see every week. And I was like, man, this Womack guy is, special. And then you watch the second half, then you watch the Vandy game, and you're going, what was I watching first half against Georgia? So what have you seen from the defense, both good and bad, after watching them all year long to this point?
I think they started off really well, like you said, but the last 6 quarters have been kind of hard to watch. I think the second half against Georgia almost deserves a caveat or an asterisk, just because Georgia was playing 4-down football. That's tough on any defense, and Georgia's a great football team. I think that kind of got lost in Alabama's first half performance, is that there's a reason that Carson Beck was discussed for the number 1 pick. They did a lot of things, and they were aggressive, and Alabama, for lack of a better word, probably took its foot off the gas a little bit. Against Vanderbilt, though, it just felt like there weren't many adjustments made. It felt like Alabama was not the aggressor like we had seen through the first really 5 games. And, they were being hesitant. And it's a tough Vanderbilt offense to prepare for. I get it. You don't see that every week. And credit to Diego Pavia and those players. They came to play. They had a game plan, and they stuck to it, and they pretty much executed it to perfection. But you got to be able to get off the field, especially against Vanderbilt. It's a situation where Alabama went into that game with the nation's number 2 third-down defense. I think they'd only allowed 11 third-down conversions in its first 5 games. Against Vanderbilt, they were 12 of 18, and they doubled them up just in terms of what they've been able to do in terms of getting off the field. So it's really simple stuff. I think this defense still has a lot of talent. I think Kane Womack can turn the ship around, but it just comes down to getting off the field and being the aggressor. When you have the talent that Alabama has on that side of the football, you should be able to do those things with relative ease, but it hasn't looked like that in the last 6 quarters.
Charlie, Ryan Williams has taken the college football world by storm. He is, this adjective won't do it justice, but he's incredible as a player and as a freshman even. So where does he rank in your mind from you covering this program in terms of not just freshmen, but heck, maybe just receivers, skill guys, players that you've seen come through that storied program?
Yeah, I mean, his start is better than any that I've seen, and Alabama's had some stud freshman wide receivers. You think back to Mari Cooper. I wasn't covering the team for Julio Jones, but obviously Julio's a difference maker just of him getting on campus. I think you look at the trio back when Tua was the quarterback, and obviously Devontae Smith went on to win the Heisman Trophy. Jalen Waddle was great as a freshman. But, it's obviously – I don't think we're going to see Ryan Williams just tail off. I don't think this is the end of Ryan Williams. But, we want to see what happens the next couple of years. But just in terms of the start, it's unprecedented. I keep – waiting for him not to score a touchdown, not just score a touchdown, but score an explosive touchdown, one that's going to make the top 10 on SportsCenter every night. And it hasn't happened yet. He leads the nation in several categories. He's averaging almost 30 yards a catch. He's been, like you said, he's been incredible, really unbelievable. And the connection that he and Jalen Milroe have is pretty special too. You can tell that Jalen trusts him. And as a 17-year-old, I know people have heard that a million times now if they've tuned in these broadcasts, his age, but to have that from a veteran quarterback, I think says a lot, not only about him as a playmaker, but, just him as a mature individual. So, yeah, he's been special, and we'll see if he can make it 6 games in a row with an explosive touchdown this week.
Again, talking to Charlie Potter of Bama Online ahead of Saturday's game with the Gamecocks and the Crimson Tide. One of the biggest stories for Alabama last year was its trouble protecting on the offensive line. You bring back Caden Proctor, you bring back Tyler Brooker, you go add Parker Brailsford from Washington out of the transfer portal. What has been the biggest reason why this offensive line has gotten better this season, and how do they match up against this pass rush that South Carolina is going to bring to the table Saturday?
Yeah, I don't really know what the difference has been because a lot of the personnel is the same outside of Brailsford. I think Caden Proctor has gotten better. I think a lot of these players has kind of taken that next step. Elijah Pritchett's someone that was kind of battling Proctor at left tackle last year, and then Proctor just kind of won the job outright. I think Elijah Pritchett's been pretty solid on the right side. He did give up that strip sack on Milroe in the Vanderbilt game. But, through 5 games now, they're sitting with 8 sacks. Last year they gave up almost 50. So that is clearly a step in the right direction. I think Chris Kobilovic, the new offensive line coach, has done a really good job. And they've actually rotated some guys. They've tried to get their best players on the field. I think the best 5 are Proctor at left tackle, Booker at left guard, Parker Brailsford at center, Jaden Roberts at right guard, and Elijah Pritchett at right tackle. But we've seen Geno Vandemark, the Michigan State transfer. We've seen Wilkin Formby, who's going into his second year at right tackle. But I think they've started to develop some chemistry, some continuity, and I think a lot of these guys have taken the next step. But I think really, I don't know if you can pinpoint it to the reason for the success, but with this new offense, having a center like Parker Brailsford, who's played in it, who was the anchor for an offensive line that won the Joe Moore Award last year, I think he's been a really huge and maybe underrated addition to this offense. I don't think he's given up a pressure or a sack all season long, and he's been kind of really the driving force up front. So they've been better. They're going to be challenged this week for sure, but if they can keep up what they've been able to do for the start of the season, I think they'll be in good shape.
Charlie, I'm sure you could maybe write a book about the differences from going from Saban, who just had a particular way of doing everything, to a brand new coaching staff, and especially when you consider how long Saban was there. But if you sort of lean in on the offensive side, and in particular the offensive scheme, what are maybe the differences, or what are we going to see on Saturday from this offense in terms of their approach beyond just, we talked about Ryan Williams. Obviously, Jalen Milroe is just special in terms of his electric athletic ability. But what do you sort of see from this offense in terms of just how they try to go about their business on the field schematically?
They've been aggressive. I don't know just the complete X's and O's of it. I'm not going to pretend like I do, but it hasn't been just a drastic difference. Like, it hasn't just been like, oh man, look, this guy invented the wheel offensively. But you can tell that Kalen DeBoer is a special offensive coach. I think Nick Sheridan's done some nice things. I do think, They've done a good job offensively, but I think fans are, of course, this week they're frustrated about everything. They're frustrated about what he's wearing on the sidelines. But I think they want to see more from the run game, and I think they want to have a balanced approach offensively. But when Jalen Milroe has been so explosive, both with his arms and legs, you lean into what you have from a personnel standpoint. I think that, at the end of the day, is what makes this coaching staff successful, is they do that. They know what works, and they have things that they've done in the past that have proven results, but they're going to mold what they do around their personnel, and that starts with Jalen Milroe. And I think it's paid dividends for Jalen because this offense is catered to him. We've seen a lot more design quarterback runs. I don't think that's something that we saw at Washington with Michael Penix. It just doesn't make sense. They've really leaned into what they have in Alabama. And, right now that's Jalen Milroe, that's Ryan Williams, that's Jeremy Bernard. And I think if they can find a way to get these running backs involved too, this offense can be, damn near unstoppable. So I think that's kind of the missing link right now, because when you talk about a defense that can't get off the field, the way to help them is to have sustained drives offensively to give them a little bit of a breather. And if you can get Jam Miller and Justice Haynes going, I think that'll be a real positive for both sides of the ball. But so far, outside the Vandy game, they scored 42 points a game at minimum. And I think if you're an Alabama fan, you have to be pretty happy with that.
Charlie, since you mentioned Kalen DeBoer and the wardrobe issue, obviously that was one of those things that bubbled up that you see in college football when you lose a game and it wasn't expected. Everything is on the table in terms of, criticizing it. But what is the temperature on DeBoer right now? I mean, it obviously shouldn't be probably like it is right now. They've lost a game. This is a guy that's lost 13 games in his entire college career. He took a team to the national title last year. But following Saban at Bama is tough. I mean, what do people think there generally about DeBoer, and how would things look if they dropped a second straight game in which they're favored?
Yeah, I think the chatter would definitely increase if they were to lose this weekend, and it's entirely possible. I mean, South Carolina's not a bad team. I think they're probably better than Vanderbilt, but it's a situation where a lot of the stuff that's been said is just people that have been upset since January 10th when Nick Saban retired. That don't like change, that, we're so used to something for 17 seasons, and that's something being the best that we've ever seen. It's tough to go to something different and then see these results, especially whenever I think it'd be different if the whole roster left and he had to, kind of put together a patchwork quilt. But to lose at Vanderbilt with the talent that's on Alabama roster, I think has been the toughest pill to swallow. Now, bringing up the T-shirt on the sidelines or music at practice, or hell, the one time they had ice cream after practice, that just says to me that you haven't liked him from day one. And so that's just people's opinion. That's what's going to be. It's only going to get louder if another loss happens. But I think for the most part, people aren't really that upset with Kalen DeBoer. He's an even kill guy. He hasn't been too high, too low, whether it was the Georgia game, which is the highest of highs, and losing to Vanderbilt, which is the lowest of lows. I think for the most part, their frustration has been directed at the defensive side of the ball and Kane Womack. And I think if we see a situation where South Carolina comes out and they put together few sustained drives and put points on the board, they're going to want to see a change. And so that's I think where the frustration's been directed the most, at least from the ones that are more level-headed. But who knows? If Alabama loses on Saturday, I might not log onto the website after the game, just because that message board's going to be on fire.
I was going to say, if that happens, you might want to take a vacation next week just to avoid everything, the city of Tuscaloosa burning down at that point.
No doubt. Yeah, it's. I think for the most part, a lot of people have been rational. I think what message boards, though, allow is for the extreme, and we've seen plenty of that. You guys know how it is. If you can scroll down to the bottom of our message board, even probably today, but right after the game, like the oldest thread was maybe 3 minutes old. It was just thread after thread after thread, and then discussion after discussion after discussion. And heck, that's what Alabama is, though. It's the standard of college football. When they don't play well, people are upset, and I think losing to Vanderbilt warrants that. It's embarrassing, but they have a chance to right the ship, and we'll see what they do.
Looking forward to it on Saturday. I appreciate your time, Charlie, and we'll maybe check in with you down the line as well. Appreciate it.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Again, Charlie Potter, Bama Online 4-on-3. Come back, wrap up today's edition of the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. A South Carolina quarterback getting set to make his first start in the NFL coming up on Sunday. That's next here on The Game.
just internally, talked a lot about it and felt like, in this particular game that he was going to give us the best chance to win. Both him and Jake both have been practicing extremely hard, preparing to be the starter. It was kind of the conversation that we had at the beginning of the year that, Jake would be the 2 to start, but there wasn't going to be any it was really basically going to be kind of a week-to-week deal. And we just felt like for this game, was going to give us the best opportunity.
Welcome back in. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler West and Chris along with you for a couple more minutes here on your Thursday. That was the voice of Saints head coach Dennis Allen talking about why they decided to start Spencer Rattler this upcoming Sunday, who will make his NFL debut as they get set to take on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Quarterback Derek Carr went down with the oblique strain on Monday night against the Kansas City Chiefs. Will be out for a little while. Jake Haener did come in and finish off that game, but Spencer Rattler has been selected to make the start this upcoming Sunday and, again, make his NFL debut.
Yeah, pumped for Spencer, first of all. He's a guy, obviously, we got to know pretty well here on the show and throughout his 2 years in Columbia. Chris, you and I got to do the first interview with him as a Gamecock quarterback, which was pretty cool. So just excited for Spence, excited for his family. Everybody involved there was nothing but class here in his time at South Carolina. And to take it a step farther, though, guys, this is just not something South Carolina fans have experienced much of. I mean, you can go back, a lot of our listeners, or some of them won't even remember this, but Anthony Wright was a backup in the league for quite a few years, started some games, and, was actually had one of the strongest arms I've ever seen. Connor Shaw has started in the NFL, but for the most part, Carolina has not had quarterbacks that have started in the league. And so when Spencer got drafted, a lot of us around here thought, hey, that's a steal with the fifth, in the 5th round. We're looking for him to get a shot. Carr has been good for them this year, but now that there's an injury and, Rattler didn't even come out of the preseason as the number 2, surprisingly to me, because I think we all saw him make some plays in the preseason and, just really excited for him to get this opportunity to go show what he can do. And I'm hoping I'll be able to watch the game. That's the one thing about the NFL. It's not as hard to watch games as MLB is, but if you don't have the Sunday ticket, Tyler's looking at me like it's going to be on.
It will be on because the Panthers play the Falcons at 4:25, and this game is at 1 o'clock, so we are supposed to be able to see it here in Columbia.
Fox Sports app.
Yep.
Okay.
So there you go.
Very exciting.
But it'll be appointment viewing for Gamecock Nation, I feel like.
This will be the first time in my life I've ever cheered for the Saints. So definitely be hard, but I'll do it.
I will have it on in the car on the way back from Tuscaloosa, in between some Alabama game review.
There you go.
So that'll be fun. Yeah, it's so funny. I listened to Dennis Allen, the first part of his press conference, the Saints head coach. It's so funny in the NFL. It's a little bit more, it's a lot more businesslike. It still depends on the coach, but just like, well, why'd you go with Spencer? I mean, I don't know. There's nothing really to it. It's just so, serious. But Spencer's earned it, man. I remember that interview. I was thinking about that when this got announced yesterday, Wes. That's where my head went, immediately, was that first interview. Remember, we obviously know Spencer now, right, and what he's about. Then we were kind of going off of the, how's this guy going to be? For me, at least, I'm like, you hear all these things. And we got on there, and Wes and I, we did the interview, and I think we called each other after thinking, man, this kid's awesome. What's this guy? He's a charmer, or but then you get to know him, interacting with him a bunch more. You understand, talking to people that interact with him outside of what's public facing. And everybody said the same things. He just did everything the right way and earned everything that he got. So super happy for him. Great opportunity for him. He, in the preseason, had a lot of buzz, so it was kind of a little bit maybe surprising that Jake Haener was the number 2, but he was a veteran. It made sense. So glad Spencer's getting that opportunity. Hope it goes really well for him Sunday.
I think for him, man, it's just going to be about playing within himself. Spence has always had that gunslinger mentality, and I think there's a place for that. But when you come in as the backup, I'm sure they're going to have a game plan for him. He's going to have to play within that game plan. We know he's got the big arm, but I think that would be key, just to stay within himself. These NFL defenses, man, they throw all kinds of stuff at you. So just play within the game plan and basically go out there and be himself.
Well, and he's got a lot of playmakers on that offense. Olave, Shaheed, obviously Alvin Kamara at running back. So if you can get the ball to your playmakers, hopefully they can help you out a lot. And we'll see what happens on Sunday as he takes on the Buccaneers. That'll do it for today's edition of the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour, presented by Firehouse Subs. Halftime show, Terry Ford, live out of Brooklyn Baptist Church, coming up next here on The Game.